Blog Talk Radio.
What's going on, guys? My name is Jonathan Flagg, the host of Mr. WWE Report on YouTube.com and Ringside Spotlight here on Blog Talk Radio. This is episode 2, The Rising Future. Why is it The Rising Future? Because we have him on air. AJ Kirsch, how are you doing?
Real good, John. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you fine, man.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thunderstorms actually are starting to rain here, so sorry if anything happens. Hopefully the show will still be able to go on as good as we planned.
Yeah. Well, can't control the weather, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, before we start everything, if you don't mind, let's take a quick look at some of your wrestling achievements and notes. Well, you've been wrestling 5 years in the indie scene, is that correct?
Yeah, a little bit longer than that, actually. I made my professional debut in October of 2005, so it's actually getting a little bit closer to 7 years that I've been an active wrestler.
Very good. And you are a undefeated All-Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champion?
I was, for a good long while. Myself and my tag team partner, Nate Rules, we were the longest-running All-Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions. We've had victories over the likes of the New Age Outlaws and America's Most Wanted from TNA. We had a really good run. Unfortunately, we did end up losing those championships eventually, but we had a damn good run.
That's very good. So, as pretty much all interviews with wrestlers go, the same question to newer fans of yours I got to ask, well, how did you get into wrestling?
Well, I started watching wrestling at a really exciting time in the business. I was 12 years old, and it was the spring of 1996. So it was right just a couple months before Scott Hall and Kevin Nash jumped ship from the WWF at the time to WCW and started the NWO. It was just a couple months before the birth of Austin 316 at the 1996 King of the Ring. So I started watching wrestling at a time when it was just on the verge of this seismic shift and just this explosion of popularity. So it was a really exciting time to be a fan because you had both WWF, WCW, and of course you had ECW as well, and you had all three promotions just competing for viewership, for fans, for attention, and so there was no shortage of wrestling to watch, and it was all really exciting.
Yeah. Well, as I stated, you worked in the indie promotions. Well, how did that come to be? Did you see like a poster or something? How did you pretty much get into the actual wrestling?
Yeah, I went to college at Chico State, which is about an hour and a half north of Sacramento in California, and at that point I'd entertained the idea of actually becoming a wrestler. It had become the dream. It became my dream at that point. And a big guy, I was just walking around downtown one night, and this big guy in a luchador mask was handing out flyers, and so I was like, oh, let's see what this is. And he was handing out flyers to a local wrestling school. And so as I was going to college, I was also going to wrestling school. I was learning how to bump. I was, learning how to do all the moves. I was learning the entire business, just inside and out. So as I was getting my communications degree at Chico State, I was also learning how to become a professional wrestler.
All right. Well, in your Tough Enough audition, we saw that you getting into the new lifestyle of 6 days a week, pretty much just strictly working out. Did that pretty much become your lifestyle when you began wrestling?
No, that became my lifestyle actually toward the end of high school. I'd been kind of a doughy kid in middle school and high school until I joined my high school wrestling team. And I actually joined my high school wrestling team because I think it was an interview with Mick Foley where he said, if you're too young to actually join a wrestling school, the next best thing is to join your school's wrestling team, because a lot of the fundamentals and a lot of the conditioning that you learn from amateur wrestling translates almost directly into professional wrestling. So I joined my high school's wrestling team, and it got me in really good shape and really quick. It wasn't easy. It was really, really challenging, a lot of the things we did, but it got me in shape. And so it was the discipline I learned from amateur wrestling in high school that got me in the habit of not only working out 6 days a week, but also eating right, taking care of myself, and just making sure that I get the absolute most out of my body.
All right, that's good. So were you always flexible?
No, I wasn't always that flexible. What you saw in the Tough Enough audition was, like I said, I've been working out and stretching for years, and stretching is so important, especially in professional wrestling when injuries, can happen at any time. So stretching is it's absolutely critical to your health, the longevity of your career. So I hadn't always been that flexible, and I had to work my way up to stretching to become as flexible as you see me, and I'm even more flexible now. So it definitely takes some time to become that flexible.
That's good. Save you from injury.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, injuries can happen anytime. I mean, just little freak accidents where you think it could be just something as simple as a body slam or something, and something could go awry. And so the more you stretch and the more flexible you are, the less likely you are to tear a muscle.
Yeah. So you did the Tough Enough audition, so everything's going good. When did you get the call that you actually made it, that they chose you?
I actually didn't find out that I was actually going to be a part of the cast until I was already down in L.A. What happened was I sent in my audition tape. I got a call back a few weeks later, and we did some interviews over the phone, some really long, hour-and-a-half long interviews over the phone. They really wanted to get an idea of who I was. And then they told me that they wanted to fly me down to L.A. to do some in-person interviews and tests and things like that. So as I understand it, they flew a total of 28 people to L.A. for additional interviews, and they ended up flying 14 people back home. The 14 people that they kept ended up being the cast of Tough Enough, and I didn't find out I was a part of that cast until just, I think, a day or two before we actually started shooting. So I found out, I mean, it was an unbelievable thrill to find out that I was going to be a part of Tough Enough, and I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah. So as you said, you're there. So you see all the other participants, and when I interviewed Martin, he said that none of you guys were able to talk to each other.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't want us communicating at all. They didn't even want us introducing ourselves, telling each other our names, because when we got to the house, they wanted, there weren't any video cameras there during the interview process. So they wanted our interaction at the Tough Enough house to be the first time that any of us talked to anybody, and they wanted to capture those moments on camera and make it a part of the show. So we weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to share anything about ourselves. We were completely on lockdown until we actually got to the house.
Uh-huh. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
When you were actually able to talk out of the other participants, pretty much who was, let's say, your biggest ally or friend?
Me and Eric Watts actually formed a pretty good friendship. We're still friends to this day.